Welcome to episode 236 of the AGEIST Podcast. Today, we are joined by inspirational powerhouse, no other word for her, Gabby Reece. And for those of you who don't know her, she's a former pro athlete. She's a health entrepreneur, podcast host, all-around longevity and performance strategist. In this conversation, Gabby opens up about navigating life transitions with intention, tuning into your inner whisperer, and the power of crafting a personal practice. She uses the word practice, and I love that. Personal practice to age well and live fully. Her approach is deeply grounded, practical, and human. She also happens to be married to Laird Hamilton, and the two of them are like the extreme sport power couple. She being, I think, maybe the more grounded, and him being the more, I don't know. He likes to ride waves. So I don't know. We love Laird. He's an amazing human.
We have more information than we've ever had. Everybody can spew up the data. They're wearing their Whoop, their, HRV. It's like all this stuff. And I'm like, that's cool. But what's your scaffolding that you've built around your life so that you can execute a practice? Otherwise, it's kind of for naught. And I always say we all have a whisper inside. I learned about my whisper very early, and I learned to trust my whisper, and I needed to.
Before we get to Gabby, are you part of the AGEIST community? If not, head over to ageist.com/newsletter. Join us and receive the best-in-class weekly magazine every Thursday. In fact, Gabby was on the cover, I want to say 3 weeks ago. So check that out. She's an incredible human being. I have to say, we have done multiple hundreds of AGEIST covers and interviews, and hers was one of the most remarkable and revealing that we've ever done. It was really moving. So if you have a chance, go back and look at that. If you love the show today, help us out by leaving a review. Hit subscribe, share this episode, or you can follow us on social. Instagram, we are AGEIST. The bigger we get, the more powerful and collective our voice becomes. Now, stay tuned. After a quick word from our sponsors, we're going to give the one and only Gabby Reece a call. You're going to want to hear her take on stress, movement, microdosing, and why aging should never mean invisibility. She certainly isn't invisible. Today's show is brought to you by Element, spelled LMNT. Go to drinkelement.com and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any of their electrolyte drink mixes. If you know me, you know I don't do filler snacks. I need something that works as hard as me. David protein bars deliver 28 grams of protein, 150 calories, and 0 sugar. There's no crash, just clean fuel that actually tastes good. Made with egg white, collagen, whey, and milk protein, my favorite flavors are cinnamon roll, chocolate chip cookie dough, and salted peanut butter. Buy 4 boxes, get the 5th free at the link in our show notes today. Today's show is also brought to you by Timeline Nutrition with their breakthrough product, MitoPure, the first clinically tested urolithin A supplement, which is showing tremendous results for mitochondrial health. Go to timelinenutrition.com/AGEIST, use the code AGEIST at checkout, and save 10% off your first order of MitoPure. Gabby, wonderful to see you. Where are you today?
I've been calling it the island of Malibu because these, radical fires that unfortunately really devastated the Palisades has sort of blocked us from, Santa Monica and going directly to Los Angeles. So now you have to go around. So we say like we live in Kauai and we now live on the island of Malibu because it's sort of a different experience to get in and out.
I didn't realize that PCH is closed.
A big part of it, yeah. If you know the area of Malibu, kind of on our side, Nobu is sort of the end, and then all the way to probably about Chautauqua, which is, the base of kind of the Santa Monica Palisades split.
Wow. This is like LA inside baseball, but how long does it take you to get to LAX?
It just depends. It could take only an hour if you're going really early or really late, but it could take you certainly 2 to 2.5 hours.
Wow. So wonderful to have you on. And at AGEIST, we ran your profile today. We've done hundreds of these, and yours was one of the most thoughtful, honest, well-considered ones I've ever read.
Oh.
So it was really wonderful. And I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I find it best if you speak from your heart and your experience. It seems to work out better.
That's a ninja move, I got to tell you.
My husband always says, because he's a very truthful person, and he's like, and then I never have to remember what I said.
Right.
Listen, people are going through the same thing you are at different phases and small, iterations of it. But what I also have found is that if you're really thinking about taking up people's time to read about you or to connect with them, if you are as truthful as you're comfortable being, that you realize that that has more meaning than being perfect for people because they go, "Oh, I feel that way too," or "I experienced that." And that actually ends up being a lot more rewarding for me when I am in contact with people because then you can connect for real.
That's right. There's so much to talk about. One of the things I want to start with is this idea of these multiple transitions that you've had in your life.
This is sort of like a confession, I guess. I have always because beach volleyball is such a small sport. Speaking of transitions, that's why I'm bringing it up. I think I always was scanning also the horizon because I was well aware of the limitations of the sport. And so there was a part of me that dedicated a great deal of time. And like I said, I dedicated a lot of years and a lot of time to it. But I think that there was a part of me that wanted to spring out of it early enough, sort of 30 years old or so, a little, touch and go a little bit after that. Because I thought, oh, if I'm going to build anything else for this other story, these other incoming stories, that's my whole rest of my life, I probably need to get to work. And so there is unfortunately, I would say a sort of strategicness to me where I was like, I'm not going to crash and burn and play until I can't move or they're kicking you out of the game or things like that. So I think there was a part of me that after playing for quite a while, and like I said, professional world championships, what have you, I thought, okay, it might be time to move on. So maybe that made some of the transitions easier.
I've spoken to a few people similar, and they don't often have that sort of plan B. It's just plan A until that doesn't work anymore. And then there's a real sense of loss of identity and dislocation that comes with that.
Well, I had it easier for a couple of reasons. One, I was late to the game. So I started more seriously my junior year of high school. The fact that I went to college on a scholarship was truly a surprise to me. I grew up in the Caribbean. In my last 2 years of high school, I moved to Florida where there was like these opportunities. And I was, I'm 6'3". I was quite tall. And so maybe I was told I was a lot of other things than just a volleyball player growing up. And so I had that in my favor. I think culturally growing up where that wasn't really a thing, in the continental United States, sort of there's this kind, you follow these paths and everybody's gunning to be someone or do something. I didn't really grow up with that. So there was some distance from this idea of identity. So that definitely worked in my favor. And I've probably always been a little hyper vigilant about plan B, C, D, and E, just in my nature and the way that I grew up. And also the fact that the sport was small. Women's tennis is the only sport truly that like you could pour all of yourself into it and maybe a few basketball players and a few golfers where you go, "Hey, if I give it all, it's sort of gonna set me up in a way that gives me a different kind of room." Beach volleyball, even at the best, we used to joke, or our team could win the whole thing, and it was like, oh, my accountant would joke, like, it wasn't a loss this season financially overall. Because if you took your teams to dinners and you hired a good coach, you know so I will say that kind of part of that really made it easier. And finally, maybe just even Laird says this is somebody who is still surfing and still doing their thing, is, I'm me, and one of the things I do is this. And so I think also meeting my husband at 25, who truly is all in on their sport more than any person I've ever met, feels that way. So culturally that was kind of reinforced in my house.
Interesting. And it sounds like you're very good at listening to the voice in your head that's telling you either stay open or stay curious or do something new. Like you've done a lot of things. And how do you discern?
I've really come to a place in my life that you try to crystallize things and see if you can articulate them as you get older, whether it's to understand it for yourself or share the idea, even though they don't really listen to your children, that maybe later they'll pick it back up. And I always say we all have a whisper inside. I learned about my whisper very early and I learned to trust my whisper and I needed to. I had a different way of growing up. I didn't always live with my parents. There was a lot of things that I sort of had to be self-guided. And so maybe I had that opportunity to really say, I'm not going to listen to what the world is telling me. and the advantage of living on an island where the world is telling me it's much quieter, it's further away. That, like you have to be somebody, you have to do something, you have to have a title, you have to have all this stuff. I had the real space to listen to my whisper. And really, if you ask me, in all of my work, that is my hope, is to say, hey, I can share some of my experiences. I've had a few. I've been in certain spaces, whether it's movement or food, for a while. But ultimately, if I could just sort of say, what's the thing at the bottom of all my work? It's really, I just want people to find the way to get in touch with their own whisper.
That's a beautiful thing. I think as a guy, it's harder. I have to say. I notice with my wife has sort of the same thing. It's
Yes.
completely foreign to me. I don't
Well, I
understand
would
it.
I would agree with that, right? Like, what are you gonna do, and the level of responsibility that gets put on men, even though I really was in pursuit of myself, and with the idea also of being highly independent even today. So I will say I can really appreciate that the load on men, that pressure on men, is real, and so it's something that I only have daughters, but it is something also that I hope for them. Because the other thing is, as a parent or a friend or partner to somebody, you don't know their whisper. And so you'll watch people do things and you go, especially as a parent, you think, "Oh man, I'm uncomfortable." And then I remember they know something about themselves and their life. There's an instinct, there's a feeling inside, there's something that I couldn't possibly know. So I really do appreciate that point, that men kind of get the pressure. And if they don't, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're a failure or a loser or something. And they aren't giving as much latitude to kind of fumble around and try to figure that out.
Let's explore the intersection between intensity and empathy. As I mentioned before in the podcast, I had an opportunity to see you teach like 10 years ago at Gold's in Venice.
Hmm.
And I know my way around fitness, but I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is intense. How do you, when you work with people, how do you balance these things?
I've had the real gift and luxury of being around some pretty good coaches. And I even mean as an adult, and people that I seek help from, and leaders, and my own college coach. And so there's some kind of fundamental things, which is, okay, if I'm going to ask this of somebody, I need to also understand where they're at, because where am I
Mm,
asking that specific person to go? Because if I have somebody who's like super type A and super experienced and they look like they're feeling good, okay, that's a different language for that person. That is success specific to them. And conversely, if I have somebody who goes, "Hey, listen, I've been living life for the last 15 years, and I looked up and I thought, whoa, I want to start again." You want to make this a place that's inviting so that they can be successful. So I think it comes from, I have pretty good instincts on, I've been around people, so I can sense where they're at. But you do have to be intense, because you're kind of saying, hey, in order for you all to have the best experience, all of you at all these different places and levels, and you could take a team for that matter, even all really great athletes, they're still all motivated differently. So if my goal is to create a space where people are going to be as successful as possible, you have to house those two continuously all the time. And if you don't find the way, I don't think you're being as good of a coach or leader as you can. And I'll take it into parenting. I have one daughter where I'll say, when she was young, "Hey, listen, if you're polite, it makes people feel really good." And I have another daughter who I'm more similar to, where it's like, "Hey, listen, your life will be better if you're polite." And so it's also understanding what motivates people. Are they empathetic? Are they more, kind of experiencing everything through themselves?
right.
And being committed to that. If I say, "Hey, I'm committed to trying to make everybody the best they can for the time that we're all together," you have to do that.
That's wonderful. How did you get into podcasting? Where did that come from?
Well, since 1992, talk about a side hustle, I've been interviewing people, television, right? It started kind of on a
Right.
lark, MTV Sports, and then The
Yeah.
Extremist. I always talk to athletes, because there was a part of me, and there still is a part of me, that gets less, but highly uncomfortable kind of always being the focus. So when I was playing professional sports, it's like you're the focus. And I really enjoyed always talking to other people and learning, because the other thing is your story gets boring, it runs out, and it has a limitation. It's only one story. But if I talk to other people and ask them, well, how are they doing it? What, even in their training or their approach or their philosophy, I have that opportunity to learn and grow and change and add and keep adding to my story. Because the worst thing you want to do is have the same story for like 30 years. I eat like this, I train like this, these are my thoughts and beliefs. So I've always really liked it. And then podcasting just was a kind of natural progression where then it expanded. Okay, so it's scientists or doctors or athletes or people who've maybe figured out this one little thing.
Through, the different people that you interview and the people that you come in contact with, I know for myself, a lot of the things that I believe to be true
Mm,
20 years ago, I don't anymore. I've
yeah.
changed my opinion on them. One of my favorite quotes, Malcolm Gladwell says, the great thing about having a brain is you can change your mind.
It's the hardest thing to do.
It is.
Especially if you don't practice. It's easier if you practice because then you're less afraid of it. I think
Mm.
what happens, especially if you're at all successful or at all, and I put in quotes, smart, you're almost dangerous to yourself because you think this is what I know. And so I think with the practice, it's certainly easier, but it could potentially be literally one of the hardest, scariest things to do.
And this is spoken by someone who's done some scary things. So
It's just, I think my kids definitely, because they taught me in a personal way how to have to change my mind or my beliefs or my ways. And in the space that I kind of live in, which is, wellness and such, you really have to say, okay, we probably have some principles that feel universal and timeless. Like, getting to bed's a pretty good idea. But then you don't want to be ping ponging in your beliefs, but you definitely want to stay open and say, okay, well, today this is in my practice. I'm practicing my best beliefs, and I could be wrong a little bit. And I have to be open to adapting.
what are some of the things that come to your mind that you've changed your mind on?
Well, I mean, I grew up at a time where they carb loaded. Let's just start on a really superficial thing. When I was in the early 90s playing ball, it was like carbohydrates is just easy fuel and it's no big deal and it's sort of like a freebie. And then you start to understand about like glycemic index of foods and just, using fat as fuel and sort of other things. And then later, because we're talking on your podcast, at my age for women, maybe not great to fast or long fast because it's not great for your hormone system. It doesn't move as fast for me. It's not like night and day usually. Sometimes it is. Some of the beliefs, like you get new input and you go, holy cow. But I will say, even things like if you would have asked me even 3 years ago, okay, I would have said stress management, certainly food, movement, right? And sleep and hydration and community. But if, in the last 3 years, it's like, oh, yeah, and all of that's okay, but if you don't get outside and you don't look at sunlight and you don't let your body do what it needs to do for real with the activation of light, you're really missing something so key. And that probably surprised me.
Talk to me about the light. I'm not as up on this as you are. How do you interact with the light and why? Why?
There's a part of me that appreciates that we fetishized science and there's all this sort of like data and hacking and all of these things, right? And so you'll hear people say like, "Oh, I breathe, I light," and it becomes like the ceremonial and it also becomes a badge. Like I go outside for 20 minutes and I stare at the sun and all these things. So I don't mean it like that, even though that's not bad, because the other part of this is people are successful because they take away the things that are keeping them from being successful, not because they're adding, adding, and adding. That overwhelms most people. So the sunlight just has some, just the fact that you set your circadian rhythm, your melatonin release from your eyes seeing sunlight. Then there's hormones, and there's all of this thing. So because it's so readily available and we've heard it probably around, it's understanding the processes that start that really then would support all these other best practices. And then in the end, we're gonna really leave something on the table, low-hanging fruit, that I probably didn't give enough attention to, even though I'm outside all the time. So it wasn't about that, it was like recognition of that.
The feeling I'm getting listening to you is that you wear this stuff like a loose garment. And there are some people that, we probably name names who have stacks and protocols and da 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 on the full moon on the third night you do this or I don't know,
Yep.
whatever. And I don't get that from you.
So I don't mind that stuff. And I'll say this pretty plainly. In our house, I would say we're probably pretty advanced, right? Again, Laird is much more extreme than I am. Go figure. And he will do things like, for example, based on when you're born and the time you're born, there's this thing where your body will kind of reboot itself. I think it's called like your gibbous. You have a sort of a hormonal reset. So that might be a time to be a little calmer. So for him, it's like, he has a waning gibbous according to the moon, and he might follow that. I actually agree with that because he does so many other things correctly. But to talk about that to most people when you're just like, hey, can you just get to bed a little earlier and try to eat real food? That's like an inappropriate thing to add versus let's get to the basics and then we can talk about it. In our house, we talk less data, more experience. You say loose garment and you're right. Within my practice, there's a rigidness because I am doing it, but I'm still trying to do it with a soft hand because I've been doing this a long time. And you're missing the point then if you're doing it like in this rigid, methodical way, because I don't know how anyone can actually sustain it. And then how are you open and loose enough for kind of some nice little pieces to float in?
That's lovely. You used the word practice. You said my practice.
Mm.
Tell me, what do you mean by that?
Well, that's the other thing for me. So besides your whisper, what's your practice? And when I say your practice, I mean, has each individual person really understood themselves enough to go, I want to eat like this. Okay, well, how do you
Mm.
do that the best? And what is your practice? Do you plan your meals? Do you have crap in your house? Are you eating out all the time? Are you a gym rat? Some people I like the gym. I live with somebody who would rather sort of do everything outside, and also he likes to feel like it's spontaneous even though it's very consistent. So for me it's like we have more information than we've ever had. Everybody can spew up the data. They're wearing their whoop, their, HRV. It's like all this stuff. And I'm like, that's cool. But what's your scaffolding that you've built around your life so that you can execute a practice? Otherwise, it's kind of not for naught. And I feel like we're really at a time where everybody's measuring and they know, and it's all this stuff. And they heard, I know Huberman. And it's like, well, I heard Huberman. It's like, I'm glad you heard it. What's your practice? And so I also am probably overly practical person that understands, like, if you don't schedule it, if you don't really understand what's your strategy, it doesn't really matter to me what you know.
Right. What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard it put that way, the way you put it, like I mean, I hear yogis talk like that. Oh, my practice, but
Mhm.
you're talking about something 360.
I am. Well, for me, that's the only way it's worked. If I didn't have a real practice, I would just get eaten live by like everyone, everyone's navigating a rigorous schedule from work, children, even though now my children are bigger, but certainly when they were younger, my marriage, tending to the relationship, not managing the relationship, like finding ways that I can show up in that right person, that right energy, that right side of myself for these different environments and still be me and not kind of get taken down by all of this because it's really easy to do. So I think I have an objectivity to that helps me put together that practice that then comes back to supporting me. And then you can always adjust your practice. That's what's cool. You can turn it up and turn it down and sort of let it have that loose garment feel, even though within it actually there's some real structure to it.
Different people do this and they have really different wiring, right? I'm sort of in the middle. Do not deprive me of sleep. Do not,
Yeah.
right? Like there's
Well,
certain things.
and I can feel from you, even just being here in this screen, there's a level of type A, like, or I don't want to say perfection, that has so many benefits and you get so much done. And it's hard for a lot of other reasons.
They can be hard on those around us.
And on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that we're talking about me, my wife made me this thing once. She's very big on tracking, right? And she's like, gives me a thing called a Pomodoro timer, which
Mhm.
is 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes you do something different. So you work on certain thing for 20 minutes, you do this other thing for 20 minutes, and you sort of schedule out your day. And by about 2 o'clock, I was completely out of my mind because I was like 10 minutes behind on
Mm.
my Pomodoro thing. It was like, oh, I gotta, I gotta. And I just realized at that moment, like, that doesn't work for me. I can't do that.
Right.
Right.
And maybe for someone who's rolled loose, maybe that'll be good because it's just actually a reminder. They're only gonna take it as a suggestion.
Right. Yeah. Rather than the law, which is how it works in my head. Right.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying the conversation with Gabby Reece. We're going to get right back with her after a quick word from our sponsors. Did you know that just pounding water all day is not going to keep you hydrated? You need the right mix of electrolytes in that water to help that water be absorbed properly and also to help your body function well with the right electrolytes. Element, LMNT, contains sodium, potassium, and magnesium, which are critical for helping our brains and our bodies function. One of the unfortunate facts is as we get older, it's harder to drink water, essentially because our thirst response is diminished. So we need to put extra emphasis on drinking water, staying hydrated with the right electrolytes. Of course, if you are pre-hypertensive or have hypertension, check with your doctor before having anything with sodium in it. For the rest of us, though, Element is a great solution. Go to drinkelement.com. That's DRINKLMNT.com and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any electrolyte drink mix. You know, I've always believed that what we eat, especially when we're on the go, can either push us forward or hold us back. And as someone who's constantly moving between travel, work, and workouts, I need snacks that actually do something, not just filler. That's why I'm a huge fan of David Protein Bars. These aren't your average protein bars pretending to be healthy. Each one packs 28 grams of protein, 150 calories, and 0 grams of sugar. That's right, 0. Built on the real science of satiety and energy, milk protein, egg white, collagen, whey, all blended to deliver a complete amino acid profile. It's like a little powerhouse in your pocket. No crash, no sugar spike, no regret. And the best part, they taste great. My favorites being the cinnamon roll, chocolate chip cookie dough, and salted peanut butter. These are bars made for people like us who care about how we feel after we eat, not just during. To be honest, I was eating these daily before David Protein ever reached out to partner. That's how much I believe in them. If you want to snack smarter, fuel better, and take one small step toward the life you're aiming for, this is a great place to start. Get to the link in our show notes. When you buy 4 boxes, you get the 5th free. That's a good deal for something that actually makes you feel good. You have a business now. A few of them by my count. How do you do time management? Let's talk about that. You know, you just mentioned you have your practice, you have your family, your relationship, and then you have all the business stuff. Walk me through Gabby Reece's day. How does all this manifest?
Well, I have like multiple screens. So what that means is my ideal screen, what are my true and real values? What are the pinnacles of the things that are most important? I've said this often. It is my health. It is my own training. I know in this far away, scope. And then it's my family. And then I would sort of say my relationship is sort of at the top of that because I know if Laird and I can keep our harmony and our peace and we're thriving as a couple, that it just certainly makes our house a better place to raise children. And then there's my work and which one of my businesses is sort of, do I know that the ROI on it is best? And so there's that. Then there is kind of months, and one month might skew more towards like, hey, I'm working more this month. And some months it's like I'm a little freer, so I can kind of top load my own training and that my time with my family where I can walk into a daughter's room and just sit and listen and not have to do anything, but I make myself available for that. And then there's sort of weeks where that is also occurring where I go, hey, it's lighter on meetings and work, so I can really just make sure I'm making myself extra available for the people in my life or hitting my own workouts harder. And certainly there's weeks and then it goes to the day where today is a work day and my family, I'll see you guys at dinner and I'll organize dinner. It'll be there, but that's just the way it is. And then finally in that day, what I'll do is I sort of look at everything that needs to happen. And rather than getting overwhelmed, because I can anticipate at 7 a.m. the thing that I'm going to have to do at 3, 4, and 5, I go, yeah. I just take a snapshot and then I spin everything. So only one thing is coming at me at a time. I know it's organized. I know I'm going to get there, but I don't keep thinking about it ahead because then it becomes tiring and overwhelming. versus like, okay, I've got the 8 o'clock. What's happening at 8? Okay, this is happening. Oh, at 11? Okay, this is happening. So I sort of have a rack focus where I'm in and out about, in the end, what's really going to be the most important thing to me or that I know I need, and it's gonna be my health. It's gonna be my training. And then I know it's like I don't wanna regret not having enough time with my family and in my relationship. And then, yes, I wanna show up in my work and kick ass in my work. And so I structure everything like that. I write things down. I also will see if the calendar's getting really chunky, I start to thin it out, spread it out. Okay, can you do the interview now? No, next week it would actually be a lot better for a lot of other reasons. So I just try to do that dance all of the time. Typically, my day is I wake up and train first thing, get that over with, because otherwise, if it's left to the middle of the day, usually it gets eaten by stuff. Well, actually, I take it back. I start by connecting with Laird. Even if it's we sit and have a coffee together, that's what we're doing. I train, make sure my kids are dialed, and then get to work, and then usually circle back up with the family, kind of late afternoon or in the evening on the days that I can. So the day might entail shoots or interviews or meetings or, something like that.
Let's talk about reasons for training. So you were a successful competitive athlete.
Mhm.
So there's a outcome that we want from the training. Why do you train now?
It's so easy for me. And when I say that, it doesn't mean I want to. So let's be clear. Let's parse those apart. We were talking about knees, right? I got an artificial knee at 46. So you can bet in my 20s that I had days that I was seriously having to say, I really hope I can get off the toilet by myself because my knee is sore, or this is hurts, or what have you. I didn't need to turn 60 and go, oh, I've got aches and pains. I really should take care of myself. I think a lot of athletes understand this. If you feel good, pretty lucky. I have had times where if you said you got to get up, there's a fire and you have to run out the door, where I think it's going to be tough based on like an injury or something like that. So I learned that really early. And I do think one thing in my personality is once I know it's true, I don't need to be reminded or learn over and over. It's like, I got the message. If you can move around and feel pretty good and participate in taking care of yourself, it's better. And then it also gives me greater capacity. I'm stronger. I'm less reactive. It just, like, I know this is a truth. So I don't need to forget or be reminded or any of that. So I train for that primarily. And quite frankly, I like feeling capable and strong. And I like the relationship also I have with my body. For women, we get set up and, I modeled in the late 80s and early 90s where it wasn't just, okay, your skin, how you look, da da da. It's like, no, how do I feel? And this is a tool that I've been given, the grace of health and a strong tool, a tool that takes me places and I have adventures in and I get to ride bikes and do stuff. So I'm going to take care of the tool. So I like being strong. So it also has made aging a little easier.
Take care of the tool. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because you can't stop aging. You just can't. It's time. It's coming for all of us. Doesn't matter who we are, the strongest, most powerful, the fastest, the most beautiful, whatever. It's coming for all of us. So how do I do that in a way that I don't go crazy? I don't act like a crazy person, but that I can be a sort of as powerful, and I mean that from the inside out. I don't mean muscle. How do I do that as softly on myself? And that seems to be helpful for me.
I do it because I get high. I
Well,
just
that
love the
too.
feeling.
Well, you get all that good stuff. That's what I mean. That's where I can handle a lot more stuff because I feel overall pretty good. So, of course, you get all those releases. But I actually think for men, it is that kind of raw, that release. And for us too. But it is also, there's a few more layers in there.
So you're in the island of Malibu, and
Mhm.
then you guys are in Kauai?
Yeah, and so this year, usually we spend the winters there for Laird's. The low pressures that bring big waves are the same ones that bring snow. So it's a winter sport. So we've recently sort of been more in the island of Malibu, and he would fly to meet swells because one of our daughters requested to go to a school here, which of course, it's her launching pad years. She's going to university next year. So I really like that too because it's a different environment. It gives you some kind of different perspectives. So I've really enjoyed that, but lately we've been more in Malibu and even for work, for our companies, for things, it's just an easier place to get everywhere.
As you look forward, I'm guessing the kids are gonna be out of the house soon?
Yeah, TikTok, like, this is my last one is, she'll be out of here in August.
How's that feel?
I'm excited. I have this conversation with a girlfriend, my very closest friend. She's a much nicer person than I am. And she's more sentimental. And she's like, "Oh, they're growing up." And I go, "First of all, this goes back to that's what's happening." Right? I'm not gonna do I remember with fondness my children as babies and toddlers? I do. It's such a sweet, beautiful time. It's crazy, but it's so sweet. And then they grow up. But I've sort of reframed things like this is the natural thing and the grace that these kids are healthy and vital and they can go. Not everybody's kid even makes it to these ages, right? And to say, okay, if I'm not going to stop time, then how can I take advantage right now of where I am right now? I cannot be 30 years ago. It's just not gonna happen. So I don't spend a lot of time doing that. And I'm excited too because I feel like sometimes when you're a parent in a great way because you want to, you do have your foot a little bit on the brake. And so now I'm being given permission. Why not? I can, if I'm cool with Laird, it's like, hey, I can take my foot off the brake and really pursue other things that interest me in a more full throttle way because my kids are, they're off doing their own thing.
I'm trying to imagine what a more full throttle version of you is.
It's weirdly like a separation from a little bit more from my family. I'm always their mom, but it's not that day in and day out practice, of showing up in that way, that technical way of being a mom. And I'm always going to be Laird's wife. And this is a very important role, one that I treasure, but we have a flow. So I know what will make him feel like this is working for me. And so it's just more time to go back to myself and the ways that I would like to express myself, not me always in this. I've been in this collective for like over 20 years. And now it's like, yeah, what do I want to do? Who do I want to talk to? What business things do maybe I just want to do for me? And so that's what I mean, like really taking my foot off the brake. And also it's the age. The other great thing about being older is you're not mired in so many things that you're navigating in your 20s and 30s and 40s. You're not sort of here to make everybody feel good or make sure that, I think you can stand up a little straighter and easier instead of trying to make everybody happy. So there's a blessing if you can find the positive side of, "Oh, I'm this age and these are the things I can do and I'm not so worried about so many things I was worried about when I was younger."
Like you, I interviewed a lot of people. And when you say take your foot off the brake, I've seen what that looks like, and it's amazing. If you want somebody to like help you take over the world, what you want is a woman who's raised kids,
Mm.
had businesses, and the kids are out of the house, and now it's go time. You're gonna rock. That's what I can tell you.
Well, also you start to if I I always joke, like, I start to do the math and your runway is shorter. It's just the way it is. And by
Yeah.
the way, I'm not interested in living forever, so I kinda have a sense of where the runway, God willing, is. And so you're like, "Hey," and that's what I always find so interesting, and again, people have all the ways they can do it. Kids, no kids, whatever is your jam. But once you do have children and it's such a beautiful experience, you have more runway and time. And also, when you start to get children, they teach you, hey, I don't have time. When your kids are little, it's like there's no time. And so this really gets put into you. And so you're just like, we got to go, we got to roll. And I say take my foot off the brake because I do believe once you're sort of working and making a family, everybody has their foot on the gas, but you do have your foot on the brake because of these choices. You want to be there for them. You want to do these things, but it is a
Mm.
break. You desire to take your foot off because it's appropriate. Then you got the gas.
And advanced time management skills.
Absolutely. As long as you can get spit out of the process feeling pretty good, not being, aggravated with everyone because this is a big thing for a lot of women. And I would love for younger women to pick this up sooner, which is how do you find the way, even, you know, you just have to defend this little piece of real estate that just is you. Because if you don't, a lot of times that can get kind of hodgepodged in with everybody else that you live with. And it's so easy because you love them so much and the job is so serious. There's no job I take more serious than being a mother and a wife, but you also have to be a brute so that when the time is to take your foot off the gas, you sort of go, "Okay, I'm good. I'm ready." And it happens naturally, right? Your kids are little, the need is greater, you have a baby, you're nursing, whatever, you have toddlers, you're there, then they become, kind of preteens, teenagers, they don't really wanna hang out with you as much, they're busier, they have friends, and it slowly starts to happen that you can kinda expand your real estate before they do leave. But you gotta pay attention. You have to pay attention to say, "Well, what would I like to do?" And it doesn't have to be a thing that's a job, that's the thing too, is you have this gift of a little bit of experience, even if it's just helping people around you or using that lived experience to support younger people. That is very, very gratifying. So I'm not suggesting it has to be a business or businesses, but just these things where you go, I'm a useful person.
What do you look for in a friend?
It's a great question. I don't know that I've ever been asked that question. It's funny. I'm in a way not that needy that way. I have a lot of people around me, a lot, and a lot of people I love and I get stuff like enjoyment from. First of all, I'm not going to hang out with people who talk about and kibitz and like bullshit around, like gossip, complaining, you know, all those things. I think most of my friends, I would say, have a live and let live attitude. Like if they see something or someone doing something in a way that they wouldn't do it, they just go, "Oh, yeah, that's not for me," and they are rolling. So I find that a lot of my close girlfriends actually have a little tiny bit of male energy. I relate to my friends actually in a much more playful way and that comes from sports, truly, where you can love each other and you're not really in each other's shorts and you're there for each other and they're learning and growing and saying, "Oh, did you hear this or read this book?" And I go, "Oh, I didn't know that." And you can tell them something about yourself that's really ugly and they go, "Oh yeah, I felt that way. I've been there." So I think I have that kind of role with my friends and I hope I'm that for them, which is if you want my opinion, ask me. I'm not just gonna freely give it to you. Unless you're really heading for a wall, I'm not gonna, say, "Hey." But there's like a playfulness and the ability to be like, "It's crazy, right?" "Yeah, it's crazy." And probably solution oriented.
What's the next 5 years look like?
Well, the next 5 years is certainly gonna be making sure that my girls are kinda settling into their young adult lives, because that's also a very hard transition. So it's sort of still being a real steady figure in their life, but that doesn't always require kind of a physical schedule and time. It's just you're there and there to listen. And if sometimes one might ask my advice. Sometimes I even have my oldest has sort of, taken time where she drifts away to get their own legs and voice and giving them room to do that. And then certainly my youngest, but for me, it's my work. I like my work. I'm excited. I'm excited about the podcast. I'm working on another project with a group of women that are really badass. They work in the wellness space. Some of them are doctors. A couple of them are pretty well known. So we're working on this one project where I always say I do appreciate the men that are in the space of wellness, but a lot of them have no clue about juggling the way a female does, and what I often believe is that a working male has more in common with me than these guys who have it all figured out and it's all measured. Some of them aren't married, some of them don't have kids. It's like I totally appreciate the data, so we're working on this idea of high-level science in an accessible and actionable way because I think that that's important, and I know they do too. So I have this project that I'm working on. We've shot 4 shows, but we're currently trying to figure out the best home for it, and just kind of taking up a little more space in that area to offer an alternative on the landscape of wellness. Like, okay, we've got it all measured, we have it all hacked out. Are we done with that now? Let's get back to first principles and saying like, "Hey, listen, how do we get it done? It isn't perfect. How does it work for you?" So that certainly is it. One of the bigger projects I have and sort of letting that take me where it goes because quite frankly, my plate is pretty full with Layered Superfood and trying to figure out the strategy on how to have more market penetration with that brand because the brand is very good. And so let's get it down the field. So that's really a mission. And then expanding and changing. We have a fitness arm of our business, XPT, and some really well-developed curriculums that we've worked on for a really long time, and just try to expand that as well.
The pool stuff looks terrifying to me, I gotta tell you.
It's so genius.
So
It's so freaking cool. And the thing is, I could if you said, "Hey, no way, I don't wanna be in the deep end," great, we got a lot to do in 3 feet of water that will benefit you. And there is no shame in that.
I've heard stories from some of the people who've done it. It's like, okay.
It's freaking awesome, though. Because
Yeah, okay.
talking about 10, 20, 30 years, you
Yeah.
can be dynamic and ballistic, you can work on hypoxic training, you can really get to know yourself in that water environment, and that you
Mm.
can do forever. So if we wanna talk about straight ass busting forever, the water is a real place to do it and still talk about performance. So that really interests me.
I'm gonna have to ponder that.
I've seen it all. Listen, we've trained people who can't even swim.
I'm going in for knee surgery in 2 weeks, and there's certain things I just can't do anymore. I would want to, but I just know, like, I can't run the way I used to run. I just can't. Just not gonna happen.
Have you ever seen the
And it
graph on running at 35? It goes like that. It drops. Have you ever seen it? People run, run, run. No, literally, because your joints are like, listen, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And most of us are running on hard surfaces and the wrong footwear and all these things, right? So it's fine. And I understand it's really, for a lot of people, such a thing. And I really appreciate that. But the water does offer then an opportunity. Because the other thing for me about the pool training is I can really just be in my athlete, but the water is an objective environment that tells me exactly where I'm at, not only physically, but emotionally. Because your emotions, your thoughts, burn air. So I can be doing drills and be like, oh, the width of your eyes burns air. So there's so many nuanced things that once you've been kind of training all these years, that you start to appreciate that you pick up in training. And what we say is you're actually training the organism. And so if we're talking about using our training to help us in real life, you got to train the organism. And so it brings a level of the ability to go raw. I could go out there and do 400 jumps. I don't crush my joints. I feel good. I'm tired. I've had to deal with myself as an athlete, which always feels good. But I've also trained the organism to be more efficient, to understand that my thoughts, the cadence of my breath. If my eyes are wide, it's sort of an aggressive, predatorial kind of stance, but you're also burning air. Do you need to be like that in that moment? Or can you soften your mouth and the tongue inside your mouth and your gaze and just calm down? Because we're doing that all day long. We don't even realize it.
This is gonna stick with me.
Well, if you ever want to learn, I would be happy to help. We've done this a lot, and I never do it in a way that doesn't make you think, oh, I can do that, and I would do it again.
Okay. Think about this some. One of the great things about what you and I both do is we're able to have these conversations with people,
Yeah.
and you get this, like, novel thought, like, "Oh, I never would have thought of that. That's super interesting." Like, when I think about old people doing water aerobics over here, and then there's you guys in the pool, that is just another world.
There's a lot of space in between.
Yeah, exactly. Super interesting. Gabby, I don't want to take up more of your time. Tell me, what do you want to tell my people? What do they need to hear from you today?
Well, I wrote it in the article too. I hear, especially from women, like, oh, I'm invisible. And I just think that, listen, are there uncomfortable things about aging? Of course. You're moving closer to at least a physical death. That's scary. When everybody's parents start dying and you go, wait, now I'm the, matriarch or patriarch of the family. It's like, whoa, none of us are really equipped. It's like, okay. I think that all of that, and oh, you look in the mirror. I mean, I've been watching video to edit and I go, oh my God, it's like, it is that too. But the other thing is you've had the grace of living this long and you have an opportunity to really contribute. And I always believe that, for example, as a female athlete, a lot of times people will spend a lot of time talking about all the disadvantages, like, oh, women and women in business. And it's like, yeah, yeah. What do you want to do? Going back to your strategy, how are you going to get there? Because the world is open to us. If we go into the world thinking everything is against us, oh, I'm getting older, oh, I'm a woman, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, never mind. What do you want to do? And what's the process to doing that? And I just want to remind people, and that if something isn't the way you like it, we're never really too old to make small changes. You can. Does it happen the same as when you're 20? Probably not, but you can get there. And now with all this information out there, I think we don't have to age so uncomfortably. See this movement for women in menopause. It's like, hey, there's stuff available to us to make this a much nicer process. And just to try to have some fun. I'm not a fun person, by the way. I live with somebody who likes to have fun, but my idea of fun is just like, sharing a meal with people that I love and having a laugh. I'm good. But to stay playful and curious and have some fun. Don't be like, old, because old is not just a number. It really is your attitude. I've said this a ton. I had Laird's best friend who died a few years back, was in his 80s. He was way younger than some people I know that are in their 30s.
Gabby, this has been a privilege. You've expanded my mind and you've expanded my imagination of what's possible. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thanks for the conversation, and I'm dead serious. If you ever wanna come when it's warm, because then the water's really pleasant, and I'll show you some stuff, and you can say, "I wanna try that other stuff. I'm not ready to try that stuff. I'd like to stay over here," and it's sort of like that.
All right.
And by the way, and I'm scared too, just to be clear. I have a million things. Seriously, I feel uncomfortable and scared. And I don't mean in my training. I even mean just in my life and in pursuit. There's so many things that I'm like, ugh. So that maybe never goes away.
I think that means we're alive. I think is what that means.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to see you in the pool.
It'll be fun. You don't need it, but smooth sailing on your surgery. I will say
Thank you.
this. Somebody told me
Tell
this
me.
when I got my knee replaced. And
Yeah.
even though your surgery will be better, easier, a friend told me, listen, the first 30 days, it kind of sucks. No matter how you slice it, even if you're doing great, it sucks. So don't attach anything to it emotionally when you wake up and you think, is this ever going to get better? Am I ever going to do the things I love to do? Just ride it out for 30 days. And then you'll see exponentially how much better it is. Be really rigorous about your rehab, which looking at you, I know you will. Be really diligent. Kelly Starrett, he wrote The Supple
Mhm.
Leopard
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Great
okay.
book. Yeah.
He had a full knee replacement. Check him out. He talks all a million things and protocols and stuff you can do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people out there that are great examples. He's a way better example of somebody who went through knee replacement than me because his range of motion and mobility is like off the charts. So just know it's out there, and how great is it that we have stuff we can do and get out of pain?
Modern medicine. Yeah.
Yeah, modern medicine for catastrophic. I say that's what we're really good at. Everything else, I'm not
That's
sure.
right.
But catastrophic, we're the best.
Absolutely. Gabby, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Gabby Reece, superhuman, really inspirational. I really enjoy her matter of factness, her clarity. I love her use of language in speaking to her. She's intense. I met her once many years ago when she was teaching fitness, and she's a powerful human being, but she's a very kind and empathetic person. And as she said, it's that balance of letting people know they can do more than they think they can, but not overwhelm them. She invited me to go get in her pool. I have a little bit of trepidation about that because I have seen what they do in that pool. I want to say that pool is 12 feet deep, maybe 14 feet deep, something like that. And then you jump in with a couple of 25-pound weights and you run across the pool and then you try and jump to the surface with your weights. And apparently they really don't like it when you drop the weights. So I don't know. This will be in my future after my knee recovers. We're going up to California and play in the pool with Gabby. Like I said, if you have a chance, check out the profile that we did of her on Ageist. It was really one of the most memorable and personally impactful ones that we've ever done. And speaking of the newsletter, this week we've got an exciting lineup of articles for you, starting with profile on Victoria Jackson. I'm also sharing a full breakdown of my experience with holotropic breathing. I hallucinated. I just want to say that. If you ever read James Nestor's book, Breath, talks a little bit about it. I wanted to try it. And it's sort of psychedelic in brief periods. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that. The recipe this week. You guys just love the recipes. And this one is just, oh my God. Talk about self-soothing yum. Homemade chocolate cashew granola. You ever looked at all that sugar and fat they get in a bag of granola at Whole Foods? Yikes, you don't want that. So here, make it at home. We're going to show you how to do it. It's cheaper, it's healthier, and it's easy to customize. And we added some extra protein powder to ours because, we're big on protein. So we recorded this a few weeks before we're dropping this. And when you're hearing this, I'm in some state of recovery from knee surgery. We're going to have more on that in a few weeks. I'm going to let you know about a lot of the protocols that I've been using. And I want to just say, huge thanks to Gabby, who hooked me up with Kelly Starrett about knee recovery. Kelly Starrett's the supple leopard and the mobility guy. And because Gabby actually had a total knee replacement and said, you got to talk to Kelly. And so I'm using Kelly's protocol and we'll see how it goes.
Today's show is brought to you by Timeline Nutrition and their product MitoPure. I started taking MitoPure after I ran their science through our science review board, and they were very enthusiastic about it. In fact, most of the people on my science advisory board and their families now take MitoPure. So why do I take MitoPure? I take it basically for health span because, the truth is, I want to be 90 and I want to be able to ski and hike and play and do all the things I do now. Think of MitoPure as these little Pac-Men in your cells, chomping up the damaged mitochondria that make you feel old and tired and recycling them into new, healthy ones. And mitochondria are our cell's power generators. They're a key influence in how we age. However, as the years pass, and I've passed a few years, mitochondrial efficiency naturally declines, representing a large gap in the quality of life we can expect in our later years from the ones we actually experience. So do what I do and do what my science advisory board does. We take it every day. You're going to notice a difference in 4 to 6 weeks. Timeline is offering 10% off your first order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/ageist. That's TIMELINE.com/ageist. Get 10% off.
This week on Just Try This, let's talk about dietary fiber. Okay, I know this is not the flashiest thing that everybody to talk about, but it's super important. We've had so many docs, so many nutritional people on this show. We just know that fiber is really the key to so much health going forward. Your gut controls so much of your inflammatory response, your immune response. It's linked to your brain. So this is what we want to do. We want to start aiming for 25 to 30 grams of fiber daily. And you want to, if you can, swap out that low fiber stuff like white rice or crackers. Try something that's got some more high fiber to it. Quinoa, lentil pasta, sprouted grain bread. My favorite are pears. Pears have an ungodly amount of fiber in them, which I never knew. I think there's 8 grams of fiber in a pear. So you eat 2 pears a day and you're halfway there. When pears are in season. Love that. Okay, so this is why fiber matters. Fiber regulates your blood sugar, it lowers your cholesterol, it keeps your gut and mood on track. And we talked, the gut is everything. The American Heart Association links high fiber diets with, get this, 22% lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Good target, 8 grams of fiber per meal or per pear. Eat a lot of pears. Plus a snack or two, and all of a sudden you're getting it 30, 35 grams. It's not that hard. So keep in mind, a 2023 meta-analysis in Nutrients magazine found that for each 10 gram a day increase in fiber intake, it's associated with a 10% decrease in all-cause mortality. So, you increase your fiber to 30 grams a day, assuming you don't eat too much. I don't know, maybe you do. That will reduce your all-cause mortality and dementia risk by 30%. So that's a pretty easy win, pretty cheap. Everybody can do this. That's it for Just Try This week. Get some more fiber in there. Your gut's going to thank you for that. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, subscribe to the AGEIST Podcast, share it with somebody you care about, and drop us a comment. Oh my gosh, we love hearing from you guys. It's so nice. We do these podcasts in a vacuum. You don't know if anybody's listening, what they're thinking. And when all of you write in and you say, that was good, I'd like some more information on that. Why can't you bring something else up? Or please, I have a question for Gabby or something. We'll forward it on. Until next time, everybody take care of yourself, stay curious, and we will be back with you next week.